In today's show, the Portland Trail Blazers enter the stretch run with 26 games remaining on their schedule. How far can they climb in the standings as they make their postseason push? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trail Blazers, your daily Portland Trail Blazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trail Blazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're talking about the stretch run of the Trailblazers season, their post-All-Star break schedule and what's ahead of them and how far they can climb in the standings. With 26 games remaining, can they make the play-in, get out of the play-in, make the playoffs, and end a 4-year playoff drought? We will look ahead to what's ahead of the Trailblazers specifically, what's in their way, as in the Clippers and the Warriors, and then I want to kind of at the end of the show, sort of talk about what's really the best plan here. What is like a better outcome as they make this charge? Because obviously, while it is certainly on the table, it is right there for them to make the playoffs. It is, I think, it's both not guaranteed. It'll be a challenge regardless, and I think it's at least worth addressing if what value it actually adds. But let's start with what's ahead of them, like the Blazers' schedule. Or I guess before we even get to the schedule, let's get to the standings. We're going to get into all of your stretch run info in today's show. Blazers find themselves entering. They will play. You're listening to Thursday, February 19th program. Friday, they will open the second half of the season against the Denver Nuggets at home at the friendly confines of the Moda Center. That will be the first of 26 games to close out the regular season. And the Blazers enter the stretch run of the season, the post-All-Star break schedule, at 27-29. They're in ninth place, ahead of the 26 and 28 Clippers. Percentage points ahead of them, thousands of a percentage point ahead of them, but ostensibly tied with the Clippers. The Clippers actually have the head-to-head. They're up 2-0 in the 2-0 right now in the season series, so it's the Clippers have a chance to just take the head-to-head series from them. But as they currently stand, technically ahead of the Clippers because that hasn't been decided, and 2.5 games back of the 8th place Golden State Warriors. I guess there's a world in which the Blazers walk down the Suns, who are 32-23, and have a 5.5 game lead on the Blazers heading down the stretch. I just think 5.5 games, it's 6 back in the loss column, to make up that type of distance in a 26 game span. Would the Blazers would need to, they need to go 18-8, at a minimum, and then have the Suns really stumble. It's not totally out of the question, but I don't think it's particularly realistic. Just because if the Suns continue at their sort of relative, win about 58% of your game's pace, the Blazers just probably cannot stack enough wins. They go 22-4, anything's on the table, right? But it just isn't particularly realistic. I think a realistic spot, though, is getting to 8th and beating the Warriors. 8th has real value. Let's keep it a buck. 8th has real value because the way the play-in works is 7-8. The 7th seed and the 8th seed play a game on the 7th seed's home court. So in this case, the Blazers would go into Phoenix. They'd play a single game, and the winner of that game gets the 7th seed. Phoenix has been better than Portland this year, but in a one-off game, I don't think I would be oh yeah, there's no chance, right? They could absolutely beat Phoenix in a one-off game in Phoenix. That's you have a real chance if you can get to that spot. If you slip to 9-10, you have to win 9 hosts in the play-in. You have to win that, and then you'd play the loser of the 7-8 game to get the 8th seed. So you'd still have to win 2 games. Either one of them would be on the road if you're 9, or 2 of them would be on the road if you're 10. That's a really tough that's a really tough road. I think 8 gives you a really good chance, because even if you lose that first game, you get to play again and you'll get a home game in order to get the 8th seed. If you slip out of it and you're in the 9-10 bracket or 9-10 side of the play-in tournament, play-in round, it is a little bit harder. It's just like undeniably a harder path. So catching the Warriors is both doable and important if the Blazers are going to reach their postseason goals. The Warriors, of course, playing without Jimmy Butler. I think that pretty much all but ended their hopes of being a title contending team, but they're not terrible, assuming Steph Curry is available. But Steph Curry sat to the end to the games at the end of the All-Star break and was presumably going to come back after the break, and has already been ruled out for the Warriors' first game on Thursday evening. Not a good sign. Did not practice on Wednesday. It just means he's just not right. And if the Warriors do not have Steph Curry for an extended period of time, and I would say having this break and having him not be able to practice and come back does not bode well for Steph Curry's health. The Warriors without Steph Curry are just not very good. They've been okay record-wise since he's been hurt, but better than I thought they would be, quite frankly. But they're not very good. They're very fragile, I should say. They're very fragile. Like, even the addition of Kristaps Porzingis, who they acquired at the trade deadline and is likely going to make his debut on Thursday, it's not very good. They're a fragile group. They're not like, I don't know, they don't have one of the best players of all time who's like the whole entire engine of their team. As sort of as many interesting shooting guards as they have on the roster, they just they need Steph. So Warriors are imminently catchable. Clippers, they got worse, kind of on purpose, it seems like. Maybe eventually they have to pay the price for what appears to be incredibly blatant cheating, but hey, we'll find out. That probably won't happen. That probably won't happen in the final 26 games of the regular season, if I had to guess. But Darius Garland is not back for them, who they acquired in the James Harden trade. Kawhi Leonard, when he plays, is one of the 5 best players in the league, probably. He's been incredible. Since the middle of December, he has a pretty strong case to be the best player in the league during that stretch. He's been awesome. But he has some availability questions, just like, is he going to be able to play at that level every night? He has been awesome and available for a good long stretch. I think they're still pretty plucky as long as Kawhi is there, but obviously they're worse than they were. But for a brief period, they were one of the best teams in the league. But they chose to get a little bit worse, and I think they are a little bit worse. Those 2 teams that the Blazers are jockeying for are in worse positions. They're worse off than they have been, say, relative to where they were a month ago. I think that part's undeniable. Obviously, the Blazers have health questions, though. How healthy is Deni Avdija? If he is not at close to the version of himself that he was throughout most of the season, when he was, one of the 15 or 20 best players in the league, an all-NBA type talent, right? He was going to have a real chance at being a 3rd-team All-NBA selection this year, which pretty much means that you're one of the 15 best players in the league. Obviously, there's some rules about who makes it, so it's not always clean, but he's been fantastic. If he's not at that level, if he's not a pretty comfortable 25.7 board, 6 assist guy, which he has been, and even better than that at times, the Blazers are relatively fragile themselves. I'm recording this before the Blazers have released any injury news, but obviously Shaedon Sharpe missed the last couple games before the break with a left calf strain. If he can't go, the Blazers are missing a player that helps, and one of their best scorers. So, the Blazers have their own health concerns. Obviously, everybody does this time of year. It's kind of the nature of the sport. But if the Blazers can get healthy, let's assume all of these teams are totally healthy, Warriors, Clippers, Blazers. I still like the Blazers' chances. If all of these teams have perfect health, I still like the Blazers' chances, just because of sort of where they are. 2.5 back of the Warriors and effectively tied with the Clippers. Portland, and I'll do this quickly, and then we'll talk more about tiebreakers and what's ahead for the Blazers and what's ahead both for Warriors and Clippers as well down the stretch. But the Blazers with 26 games left, they got 12 home games and 14 on the road. They'll play 6 games with a rest advantage. That's where they did not play the night before, but their opponent did, and just 2 games during the whole stretch run where they will have a rest disadvantage. I think that's a pretty big deal. Like, they're not going to play games where they're just tanked. They do still play some back-to-backs, a road back-to-back, Charlotte, Atlanta at the end of February, the 28th, and then March 1st. Another one in the middle of March, also on the road in Philly and Brooklyn. And then the classic Denver away game, and then back to a home game, a quote-unquote winnable home game, but that's just a brutal back-to-back at the end of March. You play Denver on a Sunday in Denver, fly out and then get back home, and then play Brooklyn. That's like you play an easy team at home, but it's just like not an ideal schedule, but certainly a winnable game. If you had to pick, it's sort of maybe any of the teams, Brooklyn will be one of them that you would pick out of the handful to play in that type of rest situation. So that's what the Blazers are with their final 26 games, and that's what's on the table. The Blazers, well, I want to talk about strength of schedule, and I want to talk about what's going on with the Clippers and the Warriors, because those are the two teams they're chasing, and tiebreakers and all that stuff. We'll get into that in the second segment. Join me on the other side. But first, I want to welcome you to the 5-hour energy flavor draft, where we're looking at every aspect of the draft to let you know which tasty flavors are the best and which might just be sleepers. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and only one is going to take the top spots. So whether you're looking for one of their wide variety of flavors that's going to offer something to everyone, or you're looking for an energy boost with zero sugar, or you're excited about 5-Hour Energy's upcoming innovations, you're going to find a winner in this draft. Whether it's some of the classics that are always winners, like cherry or grape or berry, or some of the slept-on sleepers like confetti craze or fruity rainbow, you're going to find something that you like. You're going to find something that your family likes. You're going to find a winner in the draft. So find your new flavor of 5-Hour Energy shots, available online at 5-Hour Energy or Amazon.com. All right. Thanks for making this show your first listen. If you're truly living that everyday lifestyle, go join the Locked On Everydayer Club for $5 a month or $50 a year. You can get access to this podcast, the audio version of this podcast, ad-free, Locked On Blazers, no interruptions. Plus, you get access to the members-only Discord, where you can chop it up with me and your fellow Blazer fans talking hoops. Go check out the link in the show notes, lockedonblazers.supercast.com. Okay, the Blazers stretch run, Clippers, Warriors, those are the 2 teams they're holding off. This is the teams we're going to keep an eye on the whole second half of the season. If you're a long-time listener to the show, you know that I have I have beef with the very rudimentary way of looking at strength of schedule. I don't like just opponent win percentage. I agree that some teams are good and some teams are bad, but I think looking at opponent just like straight up raw win percentage is impossible to judge the sort of relative strength of teams, like from, basically the difference on you have the hardest schedule and you have the 22nd hardest schedule in the league. Like the relative difference in those teams, because there's going to be rest days for your opponents and injuries and whether you have an advantage with travel or disadvantage with travel, like whatever it is, it's just the raw strength of schedule stuff doesn't to me paint the relative difference in schedules very hard. Although I do recognize that some games are easier than others. I'm not confused about the myriad bad teams that are in the league, particularly this time of year when the bad teams are getting really bad. Although maybe Adam Silver's just going to bully everyone into getting season-ending surgery. why I'm not mentioning, like I mentioned the Blazers can't catch the Suns. I don't think they can lose enough right now this time of year to fall out of the play-in. I've been saying for 6 weeks, maybe longer, that I think 10th is the Blazers' floor. 10th is their floor. They're going to be a play-in team. They're 4.5 games up on 11th place Memphis. Doesn't sound like Ja Morant's going to play for the rest of the year. They're just not interested in winning. They're not. They tore it down by trading Jaren Jackson Jr. They have no interest in winning. They'll do what it takes in order to lose. So we're really talking about, can they stay at a 10th and avoid the hardest path? Can they get all the way to 8th and get the easiest path? I mentioned the Blazers have schedule, and thus far they've had what Crafted NBA calls the 9th easiest schedule. And I like the way Crafted NBA does strength of schedule, because they consider how strong your opponent was at game time. So like whether they were at home, it's the altitude advantage, back-to-backs, like rest disadvantages and advantages. They consider what your, how good your opponent has been all season, not just like what they've sort of are at that point. And then how good that team's been the year, and then are they missing key rotation players, guys who've played, who are playing 24 or more minutes a game, and whether that's how much that impacts them. And then they have a luck factor that also says like, did you catch a team when they were weaker? Did you catch a team when they were better? So relative to their strength this season and relative to the strength of that game and whether that opponent was missing players. And so based on that, they say the Blazers have both benefited from a great deal of luck and have had the 9th easiest schedule so far, the 9th hardest schedule so far. 9th hardest schedule so far. So one of the hardest schedules in the league, but they've benefited from some sort of opponent luck. And then projecting it forward, which again, sort of my relative strength of schedule thing, it's hard to know exactly, but both the Blazers and the Clippers appear to have pretty easy schedules down the stretch. The Blazers, according to Crafted NBA, have the second easiest schedule remaining, the Clippers the easiest. So Portland, like I said, 12 at home, 14 on the road, 6 rest advantages, 2 rest disadvantages. The Clippers, they got 28 games left. 17 of them are at Intuit Dome. 11 of them on the road with 8 rest advantages. 8 rest advantages and 4 rest disadvantage. That's a relatively cake schedule for the Clippers. That's not ideal with all the home games and the better rest situation. That's not ideal if you're, particularly for the Blazers, just rooting for them to lose. So I think that's notable as you're trying to track them down. The Warriors, on the other hand, have a relatively hard schedule. 27 games left, 13 at home, 14 on the road. They've got 2 rest advantage games, just 2, and 5 rest disadvantage games. So 5 games against opponents who will not played the night before, and they'll be rested. And the Warriors are particularly old. Like the Clippers are old too. I think it's why it matters. Like particularly for these older teams, like you get 5 of them without the advantage games. Clippers have 8 rest advantage games. The Warriors seem to have a tough schedule. In fact, Crafted NBA projects the Warriors to have the 8th toughest schedule remaining. Importantly, though, the Blazers already have the season series against the Warriors wrapped up. They beat them 3 out of 4 times this year. Beat them in Thiago Splitter's first game. Beat them on a night when Caleb Love made 6 threes. Beat them on another night when they made 1,000,000 threes and Steph Curry had 48 and they still won. And then they lost game 4, but the 4th meeting, if those 2 teams end up tied, the first tiebreaker for 2 teams is head-to-head. The Blazers would have that head-to-head tiebreaker. They'd be in the driver's seat. Golden State Warriors have a tough schedule, and the Blazers have a tiebreaker. They can walk them down. It is doable. It is doable for them. Will they? We'll see, but it's doable for them. Clippers have won the first 2 meetings. The next one comes at the end of March 31st. That's a big one. Blazers have to win these final 2 to get the head-to-head against the Clippers. I think this is like these 2 games against the Clippers are as important as they'll play all maybe not. April 10th. It might be decided by the time they play that game because it's so close to the end of the season. But that's that game at the end of March 31st is basically a must win if the Blazers are gonna hold off the Clippers. Although maybe they could rip off some wins before that. Blazers come out of the break with some tough ones. Denver, Phoenix, Minnesota to kick things off, then at Chicago to begin a road trip. That road trip is 5 games: Chicago, Charlotte, Atlanta, Memphis, Houston. Charlotte is better than they've been. Atlanta's not very good, but it's second night of a back-to-back. It's it's a rest disadvantage game on the road, third game in 5 nights, or excuse me, third game in 4 nights. It's like that's a tougher game than you want it to be. Memphis is no good. They play them to close out that road trip, and then at Houston, ostensibly a good team. Then they come back and the schedule gets so much softer. Indiana, Charlotte, Utah at home, and then back out on the road again. But like, I'm not going to run through their whole schedule. But like to begin right out of the break, Denver, Houston, Minnesota, and then a 5-game road trip. Like, it's not super easy right away. So you got to kind of serve a little bit, and then it does soften up in March and April. And then sometimes in April, you play teams that are like good on paper, but have had their seeding locked up, and they're just like, yeah, we're good. We're going to be the 3rd seed in the West. We're not going anywhere, or whatever it is. Or like, it's so. I think the Warriors are catchable. I think the Clippers are probably better than people think they are, because I just think Kawhi's that good, and they just have a bunch of players who can play defense. Like, I think there's like a baseline of competence there with when you have someone as good as Kawhi has been this year, and the number of defenders they have on the team. But they're not like so they're like. But by competent, I mean like a team that wins, right around half of their games. Like I just they're not going to run. They're not going to like sprint away from the Blazers. It's all of this is there for them, like catching the Warriors and getting into 8th, holding off the Clippers, getting out of 10th. It's all there for them. But what I want to ask to close the show here is like, what's a better outcome? Because I do think there is some things to consider when, like, I know what the Blazers want as an organization, but like, that's different than what you might want as a fan, and you, dear listener, are valid. Let's talk about your validity and your hopes and dreams to close the show. Join me in that 3rd segment. First, though, I want to tell you about Quo. It's a new year. You're learning new systems, or you're trying to implement new systems at your place of work. And you might be looking at some of the old systems and think there's got to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why this episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications, because when your team is reachable and organized and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. You're going to love Quo because your whole team can call and text from one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal, and it works right from your phone and your computer, so you can keep your existing number and still have your whole team connected. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's program is also brought to you by Indeed. When you need to hire, because there's workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inboxes overflowing, and you need to hire right now because the pressure is on, that's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for with skills, experience, and location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. You're going to spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. And so when you need that person to cut through the chaos, that is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support my show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked On Blazers. So I think it's like the Blazers' floor is 10th. Like they're going to be a play-in team. Apologies to Memphis and Dallas. Dallas, Kyrie Irving's not coming back. Cooper Flag could be out. They've had a whole bunch of injury stuff too. Memphis doesn't cared about winning. It is what it is. The floor is 10th. They're going to be in the play-in. As like organizationally, I think it's been pretty clear over the last couple of years that they want to win. I think their like overall commitment to winning last year might have come into question right at the end of the season. Like how really about that life were they? Particularly when they pulled Denny Avdia and Tumani Kamara on a 35 minutes limit in a game that they absolutely could have won in Chicago, and then like didn't tank the following game. It was just a weird end of the year. But this year, it's like they try to they have lost games this season, 29 of them, because they haven't been better than the other team. They played this thing straight up. They're going to play this thing straight up. They're interested in taking another step, right? They want to be a postseason team. They want to be in the play-in. They want to get out of the play-in and make the playoffs. They want that. That's important to them. Certainly it's important to the players and the coaching staff, but I'm talking about like the front office ownership level, right? Like I think it's pretty obvious that is an organizational goal, and it should be, right? Because the point of basketball games is to win, but should it? I think what I want to close the show and just pause it here is like the Portland Trailblazers, thanks to the great hubris trade of 2021, acquiring Larry Nance Jr. and sending a outrageously 7-year protected first-round pick to the Chicago Bulls. That is lottery protected through 2028, and they still hasn't conveyed because they were horrendous basically right away in the Chauncey Billups era and have not exactly steered out of it in the Chauncey Billups arrested by the feds era. But like it is, if they make the playoffs, they convey their pick this season to the Chicago Bulls, and thus would not have their future picks encumbered by this debt, and they could go into this offseason with access to all of their future picks, an ability to they would have a ton of draft capital, because all of a sudden on the trade block, like they would have all of their picks. Excuse me, as I bumped the microphone. They would have all their picks. They'd have these swaps and a pick from the Bucks. They'd have another pick, Bucks Celtics in 2029. They kind of owe one of those already, but they have another pick from the Magic. Like they would have this, like they would be a team all of a sudden that if they wanted to make a really big swing, would have all of the draft capital to make a massive swing, or to sweeten little trades to make a bunch of smart moves, right? Like, but so if they were to get out of this debt owed to the Bulls, yeah, all of a sudden, like their sort of spending power in the marketplace goes way up. But if they get out of this debt to the Bulls, they also don't get to draft, and importantly, don't get to be involved in the draft lottery. Should it? Well, if they give them up to the Bulls, it'd be the draft lottery. It would not be in the lottery, but they would give up the opportunity for themselves to be in the lottery, because if they give it up to the Bulls, they will specifically be a playoff team, and thus it won't be a lottery pick for Chicago. So I think the question here is like, what's a better scenario? If you could see the future perfectly, right, and you could say, is it more valuable for the Blazers to say like, walk down the Warriors, play a really meaningful game against the Suns, and let's like full rose-colored glasses here. Let's say they beat Phoenix, and they get a playoff series with San Antonio, and get to play 6 or 7 games against the Spurs before they get overwhelmed by Wemby or whatever. Is there real value in this year's team seeing the intensity of playoff basketball and what it's like to have a team know exactly what you're going to run and have really get into sort of the mental challenges of playing basketball at its highest level, which is the NBA playoffs? If you knew that, right? If you knew that you were going to get this experience and get the 7th seed and all this stuff and play a bunch of meaningful games, right? And play, say, 8 meaningful basketball games. I think you could make the argument that might be more valuable. But if you could see the other way and say like, well, if they just slip out of they lose in the play and say they get the 9th seed, they lose that opening round in the first game in Portland to a pesky Clippers team. Kawhi has 46 and they lose. But then they jump up in the lottery and get 4th. You'd obviously, I think it's like without a doubt, you would rather have the 4th pick in the NBA draft this upcoming summer than 8 postseason games, right? Like I think like the health of the franchise, but you don't really get that choice because you don't get the benefit of hindsight. So like I do think it's more debatable because the most likely scenario, if you were to lose in the play-in and enter the playoff lottery, is that you'll pick like 13th. And is the 13th pick in the draft more valuable than say the experience of the postseason? Plus the added benefit that if you give up that 13th pick to the Bulls, you also will be free up your future draft picks to make trades, to make massive trades or a bunch of minor trades into the future, and clear up that debt and have the ability like to swap picks with Milwaukee should Milwaukee really hit the tank in 2028 because they have that pick owed to them, and that's the first of the swaps. If you knew that in hindsight, I think you go for it. So I think what you're playing here is the math. And because the math says that the most likely scenario, based on how lottery odds work, is that you're going to have something like a 3% chance or even lower, depending on where they finish, of jumping up in the lottery. Right now, they have a 0.5% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick, right? Certainly it's possible, and they could get like the Hawks and the Mavs before them. It's funny that nobody thinks the league rigged the lottery for the Hawks. I wonder why. But like the Hawks and the Mavs before them, like jump up in the lottery, assuming that doesn't happen because lottery odds are lottery odds, and odds are odds. But like, then I do think actually making the playoffs has more value for the sort of overall health of the team, not only for the important games, which I think are maybe somewhat overstated, but because you get the future swap rights with Milwaukee, that's like cleared up, and your draft capital for future trades cleared up. I think that's more valuable just because of the math. But I do think there is, if you're like, gosh, I just want another shot at ping pong balls, because they can't slip lower than 10th. So it's like, just enter the play-in with the odds you have, lose nobly, and have one more shot at ping pong balls before you feel like much more confident this team can be a consistent playoff team going forward. I think so too. I think the logic suggests that it's fine, that making the playoffs actually is a better outcome this year. But I hear all arguments to the contrary. I think you are correct. Although I just slightly lean in the other direction that making the playoffs this year has more overall sort of value, like holistically for the franchise. That's what's ahead for the stretch run. Come back for tomorrow's show. Here's the best I can do for you. I think I'm going to have a really fun guest, but I haven't confirmed it yet, and I won't know even when this publishes. I won't know for sure, but I think I'm going to have a very fun guest that you're going to want to hear me talk hoops with. If not, I'll still have a really fun show because that's what I do 5 days a week wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. Tell your friends about the program. I will talk to you soon.